So, uh, just a little bit of housekeeping. What we'll do is I will record an introduction so you can tell me exactly how you want to be introduced. And then after that, I'm just going to record everything. Usually, unless there are like massive explosions or incontinence or incoherence, we take the entire interview footage and run it as a supplement on our YouTube channel, and then I edit the interview down to fit the podcast format.
Okay.
Um, so, how should I introduce the two of you?
I'm Savitri D, and I'm the director of the Church of Stop Shopping.
Hmm. And you're Reverend
Rev-
Billy, William
Reverend
Talen?
Billy, Reverend Billy Talen.
Talen, okay, as in talent, but with the final T taken off.
I never had the whole package.
I got it. I'm going to have to really stay on my toes to keep ahead of this guy. I figured that out from our very first telephone conversation, where it was quite clear that you could have gone on at enormous length. It reminded me a little bit of David Amram in the capacity for endless relevant digression.
I don't know. It seems to me I've been with David a couple times where it wasn't so relevant after a while.
Well, yeah, there is that. There is that. That is a point. All right. Well, let me see what let me do a pass at an introduction, and then we can proceed onward.
Yeah.
There's I love the what is that, like a playground in the background?
Is it
Yes,
too
yes.
much? Because I can move. It's probably from my room. I
It,
can move.
it's kind of cute, actually.
No, it could very well be. I've got the window right at the
We kind of can't avoid it because we're right on the schoolyard. But
child's mouth's level, right here.
I, I'm a big fan of environmental soundscape.
Okay, good.
You can
Good.
mix it
Glad.
together with bird noise.
okay.
Hi, I'm Warren Senders, and this is Cool Tunes for Hot Planet. With me today are Savitri D, the musical director of the Church of Stop Shopping, and Reverend Billy, William Talen, the voice and focal point of this remarkable confluence of activism, music, and multimedia entertainment and social conscience, all rolled into one fractal package.
Wow.
What a pleasure to have you both here. I've been aware of your work for decades, but I've only recently had a chance to dive in. Um, how was my introduction?
Thank you, Warren. Thank you. The series of things that we do that long sentence, I lost track. I fell off the back end of my own career there.
Thank you. I generally refer to myself as the director, not the music director,
Oh,
because
okay.
we do work with other musicians who are really more like a music director.
Well, let me try it again and see if I get it all in, and then we can all mishmash it together. Hi, I'm Warren Senders, and this is Cool Tunes for Hot Planet. With me today are Savitri D, the director of the Church of Stop Shopping, and Reverend Billy, William Talen, the focal point of this remarkable confluence of music, activism, multimedia, entertainment, and a fully awakened social conscience. What a pleasure it is to have you both here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Warren, glad to be here.
So, I have so many questions. I've spent the past week delving into your collected works, and practically every time I switch something new on the computer, I listen for a little while, and then I feel like jumping up and down because it feels like a lot of the time there are performers who are working in activist spaces who feel either didactic or preachy. And yet somehow the two of you, despite having very clear lessons that you convey and a literal preacher avatar, manage to be neither didactic nor preachy. You instead seem to be entirely organic and all of a piece. How do you do it?
I don't think we do. I think that's an idealized. I lapse into polemics.
I think it's
I
the
lose my way in some of my shows. Saw you last night at the Star Bar, didn't I? Kind of
well, I
fall
would
off the
say
wagon.
I think that it comes from being a community first. I think it comes from the social project, actually. I think that the result of being a group of people of many backgrounds and many beliefs and many lived experiences
Mm.
means that we have to be accountable to each other and meaning in a different way.
I saw that some of your song lyrics are cited as being like quotes from an assembly.
Yeah.
Um, is there a process of collective composition that you engage in for some of this material?
Sometimes it's rare, actually. We do
Hmm.
have a couple of songs that come directly from assemblies or from things the choir say, but I think of it more as an accountability thing. Like if we try to say something that isn't felt or held by the group, then it just doesn't play. I had a line in a song recently. It said, "Oh, I never liked this country. I never liked this country." And one of the singers wrote, and she was like, I don't think I can sing that.
Mm.
And so we changed the line to, "Did I ever like this country?" Which that's just an interesting example of that accountability loop, where we have to really work through the meaning and um, when I go to church, for instance, as a visitor, there's so many things I can't say out loud, so many songs I can't
Mm.
sing because I just don't believe them. So I think that keeps us real. Yeah.
And what you have, you describe it here as a community. Is the Church of Stop Shopping an actual? Are you recognized as a formal religious entity? Uh,
No, I think it would be a mistake for us to be legally a church. We're like a little theater company.
mhm.
We're set up that way. We have a board of directors, nonprofit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The
I don't
the
know if we want to be a
institution.
church.
Yeah.
We're not Christian, and we don't want. We have people from all over the world. In last night we had 27 singers at the rehearsal, and just came from everywhere. And so we don't want to align ourselves with one religion more than another.
Well, not even just a religion, but an institution. I mean,
Mm.
institutionalization is, that's the bane of creativity, right? It's a kind of coffin for resistance and change too. So I think we resist it for that reason as well. I mean,
How
the
many?
legacy of the church is, as you know.
Yes. How many people are in your affiliation? I don't know what the correct word is. How many voices are part of your community?
Well, we have, usually on the between 2 and 3 dozen singers, but we're mostly volunteers, so we come and go, and we have lives, and
Hmm.
some of us are very fluid in our locations. Fran just came back from Chile, right? And so, and then as far as the support, we have a board of directors of like 10 people or so, some of whom we don't see for years, and then we have kind of a first group that live in Brooklyn and downtown Manhattan that come to our services whenever they can.
Is that like the core group that's represented in your Hollywood Bowl videos that went on tour with Neil Young?
Yeah, we shipped them all out on veggie-powered jets to LA, and there they were, all our
I
friends.
mean, that was the smallest group we've ever performed with, and it was just the sort of demands of touring and the economic reality of rock and roll life. But
Oh, you're
um,
talking about the stage.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking
yeah,
about the audience.
I'd
Because
say
I
there's
love
like,
your question, Warren. How did you get those 18,000 people there from Brooklyn? Yeah.
yeah, I think we tend to be about like 40, 40 to 70 people who are in a kind of close in group, you know.
There's a wonderful relationship between naivete and wisdom. And in some respects, the live presentations, they remind me a little bit of when Sun Ra was in full cry, and the whole orchestra would be wailing away in the service of this completely baffling Afrofuturist agenda, and Sun Ra's flinging things into the air and calling out, and yet at the same time there was a sense of complete, I don't want to use the phrase, complete buy-in on the part of everybody involved. And everybody was very serious about it. There was no sense that they were play acting. It reminded me also a little bit of some of the clips that I've seen of John Cage performing, where his concentration,
my God,
his concentration was so perfect.
Thank you, Warren.
And
Wow.
watching
John Cage and Sun Ra.
Watching the Church of Stop Shopping and the in action brings forth some of these experiences that I've had, where it really seems like, as you said, I think, Savitri, that you work to make sure that people aren't saying things they don't believe in.
Yeah, I think the goal would be to feel at the end of our show that anything is possible. And I think that's our job, really, to do that. And many thanks for bringing up Sun Ra, who really is like a North Star to me in terms of, I mean, musically, of course, just a genius, but also just his willingness to go into the unknown, to just do wild things and charge the space with wildness. And, we're urban people, we live in the city, but we're earth activists. So for us, it's like, it's us. We have to be the earth. We have to be the wilderness. We have to bring that into the room because, we're not in a forest. We don't have access to the earth in the same way that many people do. And so that's always been kind of our charge. So yeah, Sun Ra is such a hero to me and a teacher and leader. And but that feeling of anything is possible, and it's interesting because that is like, that's the good news, right? That's the gospel. That's what the gospel is, right? So I think we try for that. We don't always succeed. There's times when it fails, and that's also a great teacher.
I remember the story of Bucky Fuller trying to construct geodesic domes at Black Mountain College in 1948 and having the whole thing fall down. And he said, "Yes, this is the best thing that's ever happened." And so that whole idea of embracing the mistakes, embracing the things that collapse. Are there memorable failures that you've had that you would feel comfortable sharing? I'll tell you one of mine if you'll tell me one of yours.
Confession time.
Oh, so well, one time we were doing a show, and in the middle of the show, the piano player, we used to go do these gigs, and we were just penniless, and we would just open a phone book and find some player to come play with us in a town, from the church. We'd call it church, and we got this guy, and he came and he played with us, and I swear, in the middle of the show, he just stood up and left. He just left. It was just too much. I think Billy said something like Jesus was gay, or something really just too much. He just left.
Can you imagine being just a regular church musician waiting around at the Union Hall for a call, and then it turns into you folks? Wow.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was a really interesting moment because I observed the stage as a kind of a sacred space. For me, it is a I take it very seriously, and I take as well what's happening to the other people on stage very seriously too. It's something we do together. It's a very brave and courageous thing to do, to make something out of nothing in front of people. So I was, I really did a lot of thinking after that. I'd say that was a great failure on my part.
Do you remember that time that we hired a young man? This was near Black Mountain College, actually. This is in North Carolina, I'm thinking.
No, it was in Ohio. It was in Ohio, yeah, but it was Appalachia essentially, yes.
Well, we had that preach off with that one preacher. Remember the local LGBTQ club brought us in.
Oh yeah, in Chapel Hill, right?
Debate. Oh, that was Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
To debate a kind of the resident wild right-wing person who was screaming in the middle of their in the middle of their student activities committee, shouting that everybody was a sinner, all the students were sinners because they were having too much sex and Marxist literature. And,
A perfect combination for any party.
we had a preach off with this guy. I think we did really well. As I recall, he became very upset with us, and that was how he won that debate. Is how angry he got.
Well, I do remember at the end of that debate, he was shouting at me. All he could do was say over and over, "Get back in the kitchen.
How
Back in
classic
the
is that? We won the debate on that note. Certainly all the women and half the men listening said, "Oh my God."
No, but there's no failure in art. I mean, there's no failure. Like these are silly ideas. Those are commercial ideas. Art is a communication form, and I mean that debate was a failure because we didn't get anywhere with him. But on the other hand, it was like so helpful for all the young kids who were around. And I don't know, it's hard to ever judge something from just success and failure. I think those are commercial values that we don't really ascribe to.
Well, art forms are artificially created, with property lines and what's in and what's out, and then but they move. They move and grow and change and shrink and move again, like bioregions. And is the dog in here? I don't think so. Our neighbor, the dog walker, just showed up and interrupted me.
I wasn't sure whether it was an actual or a metaphorical dog.
That's my art form fluidity that I was just demonstrating for you.
That
dog.
As I was going through, I was writing down a little sort of commonplace book of quotes, and one of the things that emerged for me was that wonderful quote of Rumi's that sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment.
Ooh, yes.
And
can I use that?
It's Rumi's, man. You can't steal a gift. And it struck me again as I was going through your oeuvre, which is enormous. I mean, you folks have been at this for a long time, and you really have such an extraordinary body of work. One of the things that I began noticing and started feeling at it, and it was a sort of itch that had to be scratched. It seems to me that your artwork, your collective art, is it has a kind of fractal self-similarity where a line of a song carries ambiguity and humor and moral certainty and a whole bunch of things, and all of that just gets expanded upward into the size of the song or the size of the performance or the size of the artwork in toto. And I think that's part of what makes it so effective, is that it seems to be all of a piece up and down all the levels of scale, which is a characteristic in general of great art, is that fractal quality to it. It's a fractivism, perhaps.
That's so interesting to think of it that way. I think of it as an instrument, so I can see how it would manifest that way, because the instrument is Reverend Billy and the Stop Shopping Choir. And so, it shows itself all these different ways. It relates to space and time, just like if I walked out in the park with my saxophone, or if I went down to the subway station, it would still be a saxophone. Do you know what I mean? And but it starts to show its environment. It starts to show what's happening around it. It can be reflective in that way. So, yeah, but I think we're both very intuitive people, and I think as artists we are. Well, I feel very privileged, of course, to be able to pursue that with my intuition, to like follow my intuition in this work. But I think a lot of the time we're really trying to be in response to the culture and what's happening and to the earth as well. So, I mean, maybe what you're seeing actually is how fractal the world is, not us, because I think we operate as a reflective surface sometimes.
Operating as a reflective surface. So in a sense, you're holding up a mirror.
I think so, yeah, a lot of the time. I mean, we of course bring something to it, but I mean, largely we are just we stand there and say what needs to be said. this monoculture approaching us, this monoculture like coming down on us, all of us, surrounding us, covering the surfaces, coming into our eyes and our ears and our senses, and what needs to be said to respond. How do we grow that vine that cracks that wall,
Tell me a little. I mean, we could go into philosophy for the next 3 hours. Clearly, I'm having such a good time.
Let's
Tell me,
do it.
tell me a little about the evolution of the Reverend Billy character. Did that emerge in tandem with the idea of making it a church of stop shopping, or did you find a character that just popped full blown into your mind? How did that work? I'm asking you to go back into history here.
Well, I believe it started in confusion. Uh,
Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. There we go.
I knew that I was mentored by um, a lapsed uh, Jesuit.
That was Sidney Lanier?
Yeah,
Right.
and for him, I think uh, he wanted he wanted me to respect a prophetic note that he heard in my voice, and so he brought me to um, the historical Jesus conferences, and I met these people who were figuring out what Jesus actually said and what was said
Mm.
on his behalf and what was said on the behalf of other people, you know, making church life and all that. Uh, but then I think that Sydney was kind of aghast when I started loving to preach and started resembling kind of his nightmare because he was a sophisticated man from the South, from the family of Tennessee Williams, and he and I started going to New Orleans a lot, and I started going into churches of both white and black, um, troubled the whole time by the content because I was raised by Dutch Calvinists and I really had a thing about Christianity, but I started falling in love with preaching. So I was
Mm.
confused myself. And I would come back to him and he would give me another book to read, and then I would go out and I would preach on the street corner. And he tried to make an integration of all the things that we had done over the years, walking around and thinking about how how religion happens in America. And he said, just concentrate on the instrument of preaching and turn off the content, and and then find your own content. And so we developed um, Mickey Mouse as the Antichrist. We made our own theology, and the sin came in the form of sweatshop labor of the Disney company and saturation advertising of the Disney company, appropriation of the childhood love of animals, celebrities speaking out of porpoises, and just all that. And so he planted me in front of. We moved together out from San Francisco, and he planted me in front of the Disney company at 7th and 42nd Street in Times Square, with this giant Mickey Mouse statue behind me. And we created this alternative theology, and then and it evolved from there. People started clapping around me, and but I it took me at least 6 months to learn how to preach in the white noise of Times Square. And I go
Mm.
back, I go back like at least weekly to just practice because of all the drifting tourists. And so because Sydney planted me in the capitalism capital and the tourism capital, we developed the phrase the Church of Stop Shopping.
Mm. I was wondering about your relationship with other anti-consumerist groups like Adbusters and so on, but you seem to have you're approaching it from a different perspective. Can you tell me a little about that? Are there other groups that
Well,
you'd
I've
want
been on interview shows with Kali Lawson from
to?
Adbusters, and we're reviving Buy Nothing Day now. We're going to have a gathering and a celebration at Tompkins Square on Black Friday at 2 p.m. So we're going to bring back the Buy Nothing. We for years we were doing it every year religiously. If, maybe I shouldn't use that phrase.
I think that I think a lot of activist groups, we push a lot of buttons, and I think sometimes the religiosity in particular, either the sincerely held beliefs or the irony, either one, just kind of freak people out.
That's another fractal place. I kept peeling one layer off the onion, and I realized that what you were really doing was kind of maintaining a steady oscillatory state between the ironic use of televangelist or street preacher tropes, which we either associated with unfettered sincerity or unfettered cynicism.
Yeah, we call it radical instability. And to us, it's like an opening. It's a place where you can change people. There's transformation is available there, So we try to ride that line, and it's hard actually to stay in both. I mean, we definitely have had times where we've veered off into a sort of earnestness that I don't appreciate, and then sometimes it's too ironic. And, it's a hard line to walk for sure.
It looks well. I've been a performer my whole life, and I've been involved in music and performance art for decades. And so when I see you doing something that looks that easy, I am keenly aware of how much practice and how many levels of chops are involved in that. And my hat is literally off to you.
Thank
And now
you.
back on again. Yeah, very, very impressive. Another thing about your activism that really strikes me as being very salutary in the present environment. I remember Gandhi's quote about how the British had the machine guns and they wanted the freedom struggle to be on the plane where they had the weapons and we did not. And our job was to place the struggle on a plane where we had the weapons and they did not.
Yeah.
And one of the things that it seems to me that your activism is pushing back against is this idea of unambiguous absolute certainties sort of associated with our commercial system.
Yeah.
And your readiness to embrace the fact that it's not easy to explain. It's not easy to peel open the truth of it.
Well, once you embrace the earth, and you got a room full of people shouting "Earth, Hallelujah," then the earth is your guide, and the earth is in motion. The earth is evolving. The earth, you can't figure out where it is because it's everywhere. We're walking ecosystems on the one hand. On the other hand, scientists are finding one-celled animals dancing out of solid rock a mile underneath the surface of the earth, and now they're finding life in outer space. They're finding life in the part of space that we thought was empty and dark. And so once the earth is once you're saying "Earth, Hallelujah," you don't have a fixed monumental persona that you're trying to push all your unknown questions into. You're going with your questions about life into the unknown. You're going where they don't speak English. The forest doesn't speak English.
So much of activism, unfortunately, comes down to a line, right? It comes down to a property line. It comes down to a police line. It comes down to a border line, and I think that it's a real limitation of activism that we become obsessed with these lines, but of course we have to meet power somewhere, right? And so I think that song is amazing, is an amazing way to meet power, because song is both internal and infinite. It's like when you sing a song, you're singing all the songs.
Right.
When you make a rhythm together, when you make beats together, that's the heartbeat of every animal. That's the heartbeat of every drum. I mean, there's there's just a way that you explode this conceptual line at which we stand with power so often, and it's a frozen place. There's so much paralysis in that arrangement of things. Um, so I think that the music does a lot of that work, that expansive work in activism, and takes us out of that binary or that duality that we have with power, with property, and I get it. I mean, I know why we do that as activists, and like I love being on the line with police. I mean,
Right.
it's exciting in certain, stimulating in certain ways. But as far as transformation goes, that's what we want. We want to transform our movements. We want revolution in that sense. Transformational change.
But Savitri, you remember that one time we were in front of that Citibank headquarters, and we stayed in front of a line of about like 50 police. They were defending the headquarters of Citibank. And how many of us were there? About a dozen?
I don't even think so. Not even a dozen.
And we just walked back and forth and engaged their eyes.
Mm.
Because their uniforms were made to look the same, the fascist costume, but then their eyes.
We were still, actually, and they were still, and the only thing in motion there was the song. And we were singing, can you feel the earth? She's crying. I can feel the earth. She's crying. And we did that that was a long time we were there.
That was a durational performance piece.
Wow, yeah, so many
They were
times.
assigned to the place as long as this foreign element was threatening the ATM machines. They were assigned to it. You had to stay there. And we were aware of that, I suppose, at some point.
There's a wonderful story that Scott Alaric used to tell of when Pete Seeger got invited by a student organization to perform in late Franco period Spain. Mm-hmm. And he was getting ready to go on stage, and the Franco regime secret police came in and said, "We need to see your set list." And he said, "I don't really have a set list." And they said, "In that case, you're not allowed to sing any of these songs." And his response was to go out and say, "Here's a list of the songs they've told me I'm not allowed to sing, but they didn't say anything about you singing them, so I'll just play the chords." and 20,000 people who had learned all of those songs from old almanac singers records that had been smuggled into Spain over the preceding decades.
Oh, wow.
All sang together. What a moment, right?
So great.
And that's an example of just how deep song can go. Yeah, there's a wonderful quote from the biologist J.B.S. Haldane where he said, a chicken is just the egg's way of making another egg. And I like to make an analogy to that human beings are just the mechanism by which songs reproduce.
Nice.
And so every time that you teach someone a song, you're just being part of a symbiotic relationship with this non-human collective intelligence that we call music.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
And that's something that I was trained as an ethnomusicologist, so that's where my background comes in. And anyway, I love what you're doing, and I love the way that you manipulate tropes that are associated with certainty and dogmatism to help catalyze both, I would say, both epiphany and ambiguity in equal measure. Mm-hmm. And to see it all done with voices in chorus is really is just such a treat. How do the pieces of music themselves evolve?
Generally, Billy and I write the words for songs, and then we work with composers or fellow singers to make songs. A lot of our music, though, comes just directly from our practice on the street. There's a lot of our music that we start saying something in the street and it turns into a song, or
Can we be strange enough? Can we be strange enough? Can we be strange enough to change enough to change enough?
Right. There's like that, or it's kind of like there's also songs that come because we need a song to sing in a certain situation. Like we made a song to sing while we're getting arrested because it's so hard to know what to say when you're being arrested, but so often what happens is everyone gets really quiet, and then there's like this, I mean, that's an approach, like as a discipline of like silent arrest, but then there's also this feeling like it's a very special moment when you're
Mhm.
being arrested and you have a lot of extra power almost, or it amplifies everything. So we were thinking about, oh, and how can we join the people who are not being arrested into the moment of being arrested so that it's a shared and more collective experience. It doesn't turn into like an individual or heroic exercise. It becomes a communal exercise. So we made a song, I am not the only one. I am not the only one. And that's a song we wrote to sing while being arrested, which strangely, it was very hard to do while being arrested because what we found is that the distance that you are from the other people makes it very hard to sing a rhythmic song like
Right.
that. But the song became very important to us, and we sing it all the time. It has like, I'm shaking, I'm shaking, I'm shaking, I'm moving the ground, moving the ground. Or another line is change, 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 and be changed, change, change. And then it also calls on the ancestors, invisible hand of the grandmother,
Oh,
so it's doing all this work. We've made it, it's like a work song, we don't always use it in that situation because, like I said, the rhythm breaks down at a distance. But I think a lot of our music comes from utility. Like we need a song for this. We need to say these things in this place. So we make a song that way.
which is where most human music came from.
Right, right.
Work songs? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, work songs, love songs, and healing songs.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it strikes me that it feels like I hear all of those from.
Yes. Yes, we definitely have all of those. Yes, we do.
And
Yes.
then the monarchs tried to take that energy towards their throne. They started paying musicians to take to ultimately to praise them. Although the Messiah, I think of the Messiah that and he is the government, he is the power, but it was a commission by the king, and it's praising God, but the king is in the balcony.
The
So
Well,
king is
one,
it becomes
anointed.
anthropologically or ethnomusicologically speaking, Alan Merriam suggested that one of the primary functions of music, in addition to social dance and so on, was to enforce social cohesion and social norms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so then you do have music to support the princely state or whatever. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I think also that Miriam didn't really express this, but as I observe it, I see this happening a lot, is that music also serves to reinforce our cultural understanding of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Western classical, the romantic symphonic ending of just constant hammering back and forth on a 5/1 cadence and then a lot of blood and thunder at the end,
Mm-hmm.
that I forget who it was that said that could only have been created by a culture that believed in a biblical apocalypse.
Right, right. That it
And
ends. The ending
the
is,
end.
yeah,
The end.
right, and Indian classical music ends in exactly the same way that it begins, with these
right,
kind of slow, drifty notes that vanish
right,
back into the drone. And African music seems to have always been going on, and then when
right.
it's time to stop, they say, "Okay, we're done now,"
Yeah.
and
It
and
doesn't
they
have to
just go
end.
back to doing what they were doing before. And
Yeah.
so, perhaps does your music express a concept of how time or how nature should be?
No, Earth Alleluia uh, says our Earth Alleluia song is in the tune of the Messiah, and it says it's all about, isn't it? What's the line, Savitri? It's all about change. It's all about it's against time, but it's using the Messiah. Earth Alleluia, Earth Alleluia, Earth Alleluia, Earth Alleluia, Earth
No,
Alleluia.
but it's an interesting question because I think about how in the last few years, more and more of our work is, I mean, we're more and more improvisational as our practice develops. And like, it's become really difficult to end songs. I mean, we were just having this struggle last night making a song. We're making a new song, and the feeling of how does it end? Like, does it end fast? Does it end like that? It doesn't have an ending because the question hasn't changed. We haven't changed the world enough to change the question in the song. I feel like the ending of the song would come if we actually did the thing, which we just don't seem able to do. So we're like, it is in a sense more like the description you had of the African music, of which there's so many, of course, but like, yeah, it's funny. I'm having a harder and harder time with regular song form and knowing how to. It just feels very arbitrary. I'm in the John Cage world now of like, just whatever, like end the song. Throw it. Like I don't know.
I did an interview in 2021 with Rainer Neugebauer, who is the guy who curates the As Long as Possible organ piece.
Yeah.
And so he stood in the chapel with this little organ humming away behind him and talked about climate change and how long-form music impacts that. And one of the things that I want to do at some point is a segment of the podcast on concepts of time. I have an old friend of mine is a kinetic sculptor named Arthur Ganson, and he built a piece that had 50 separate step-down gears, 1:64 gear ratio. So at one end of this thing, there's a motor that's turning around frantically, and there's a gear that's attached to it that's going around, a couple hundred revolutions a minute. The next one's going around 20 revolutions a minute. The next one is going around, and then 50 gears later, he's got a gear that's going to turn over once in every 13.5 billion years.
Wow, amazing.
And he calls it visualizing the Big Bang.
Wow.
That's great. I mean, what I see a lot in the culture right now is like, there's a feeling of wanting this, right? This kind of slow down, this reevaluation. But unfortunately, a lot of times it isn't informed by content or any kind of like actual connection. So it's basically just vibe, right? It's like I've been to whole theater pieces that are just a vibe. Like there's no real content. Or it's just, but okay, I'm not saying vibe is good. I mean, there's something there, right? But I do see that there is a request for this from the culture, right? But the way it plays in capitalism, in the moment we're in a consumerized commercial culture is just like just vibe, just pure vibe.
A 35-second TikTok on the need to expand our attention span.
Yes, or a 35-hour rave,
Right.
It's kind of it's the same impulse, with a different answer.
Well, when we're confronted by the monoculture all day long, and things are it's the repetition of the same details all day long, audio and visual, then I can see where our artists turn to immersive, like a bath of one vibe. But what are the alternatives that we have? We queer a church service for our purposes. We start there, but Augusta Boal always said that the old idea of A smashes into B, producing C, the old Western story form idea. He always thought that was aiding and abetting once again the power people, that heroic form, the journey, the conflict, the resolution, and the perseverance. He always thought that was so. Choosing your story is one of the big questions right now in our culture. The monoculture is really thorough. I mean, the saturation advertising has never been this, if you can just use that as an umbrella phrase, never been so thorough. People are hypnotized. We are on screen 7 to 10 hours a day, each of us. And that's corporate production in most cases. And they let little friendly come through. We have some contact there. But boy, that's corporations. They're the biggest corporations in the world. do that with, they have control of us on that level. When we started this project 20 years ago, it wasn't this bad. When I started out and preaching on the sidewalk in Times Square, it was just the billboards. It was just Kate Moss. And look at that. She's 40 foot long. Look at that. That's a big, big billboard. Now those buildings are televisions and they're 12 stories high.
Yeah.
And you walk by them and you could like fall into them. They have dimensionality, complete mastery of time and space by these. What are you selling me? Whatever it is, I'm high. I'm in motion. I'm flying.
Right.
And then it turns out it's like a teenager in underwear and a perfume or a car.
And then part of the response that comes into that is to shut down entirely so that we're no longer aware of other human beings or anything outside our own personal bubble. And then we wind up with people behaving badly.
Well, I think it's more like the corporations want to control when we're open and when we're shut. And if somebody retreats completely, they just go crazy and start shooting. You're right, but I think the corporations feel that making crazy, violent people is okay because their profits are high. I don't see corporations caring about what happens to people. We're an extraction. We're to be drilled and burned.
There's an interesting relation. There's an interesting dichotomy here between the awareness that ecologically minded people have that that our individuality is sort of chimerical and that really we're all part of this vast collective intelligence. We're all just statistical data points in this constantly fluid universe. And then on the other hand, that we're capable of being manipulated by demographic programmed AIs that are working with a weirdly analogous framing.
Now, I think it's wrong to say that I think that people do it. A lot of nature people become very passive, and their idea of nonviolence is to float around. I agree with that. I lived in Marin County for years, but nature has intelligence and nature has fierceness. I mean, think of some of the animals and plants that have come out of the natural world. I mean, if we lived up to the example of lions and Venus flytraps, we would be we would do something if black ops soldiers dropped down on our apartment building. We wouldn't just let them zip tie our kids. I mean, so nature's a lot of things. Nature's a lot of things, and to be an earth person, I mean, Savitri and I, one of the reasons we have to be active in parallel to the Earth Church part of it, outside in the streets, we want to get arrested. We want to be up against the police. We want to be up against the monoculture. We need to be action. We need to evolve our city, New York City, forward so that our parks are special places. We were not to brag, but we had a lot to do with getting glyphosates out of Central Park, and that took going to jail a lot. It took being animals. It took claiming that part of our ecosystem here, which is so important because it's so heavily civilized here, if I can use the word that way. We had to go in there as active animals, finding our environment, finding our ecosystem, and defending our ability to live. So we were nature then. We were nature saving nature.
When you and I first spoke on the phone, Billy, last week, I remember that part of our conversation was that I remarked that 100 years ago, the word consumption was the name of a deadly disease.
Right.
It is again, if we and it is again, and we had this period exactly, in the middle of that century where it seemed that we in the Western or developed world that we believed consumption was going to save us all. In that post-World War II period.
Yeah.
And I remember my parents having grown up in the Depression, and they had this strange flip-flopping back and forth between wanting to save everything and also being ready to buy all the latest TV dinners and all the latest disposable junk because it was just so much easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also, they were being encouraged to. One of the professors at Brown University has a lecture about when the doughboys came back from World War I a century ago, that the economy was moving into soap and cleanliness, and a lot of people were moving off the farm into the cities.
Right.
And a
How
lot
are
of
you going to keep them down on the farm after they've seen Paris?
and they could go back to the farm and scrub it down. But a lot of the ads had people with their hands up, like women, like putting something on the top shelf so their armpits were showing. And so we were becoming self-conscious about our smell, and that was a big step. We see the steps of consumerism. We see Eisenhower. We see Ronald Reagan. We see we see the steps where it becomes more and more intense. I think the Clintons were very consumerized, on and on towards total immersion in the product. But it's fascinating to look at the first steps, because that hasn't stopped, has it? I mean, now there are thousands of ways to like avoid your own smell, right?
We're coming up toward the end of our hour, but I want to ask
I
a
thought you
couple
said it
more.
was going to be 3 hours.
I would love.
Right.
Hey, listen, I want to either adopt or be adopted by both of you because
Warren,
clearly
Warren Sender.
Senders.
Senders.
Yeah.
Warren Senders. You are, I looked it up. Uncle IA told me that you are tunnels, interlacing tunnels. You're a Warren of passages. So we have to, we're in a complex world with you.
Well, I'll send you some information about the work that I do, which is much more
do.
localized in scope. But my background, I'm a Hindustani vocalist. I lived in
wow.
India for
Right.
many years studying raga, and
Oh, really?
I perform. I make my living, mostly I make my living teaching Hindustani music to expatriate Indian computer programmers living in the
Wow.
United States.
No.
So you know
Because,
Terry. You know Terry Riley.
oh, of course, yeah. I know Terry, and you might know Steve Gorn also. He's and there's a limited universe of non-Indian people involved in
Yeah.
this
Michael
realm.
Harrison and
Oh yeah,
Shabda Khan and all those
yep.
people.
All the San Rafael people as well. Tell me just a little bit. How did you wind up going on tour with Neil Young? How did that unfold?
That came from our activism. Just like most everything we do. It started in West Virginia. We were working against mountaintop removal, and Daryl Hannah was also quite active in that work. And then we shifted over to. It's a long story of how we shifted to glyphosate, but through honeybees and neonicotinoids and pesticides, and we became sort of obsessed with pesticides, and trying to make something invisible visible became really like a challenge, and also just knowing what glyphosate is doing and how ubiquitous it is. And so we started working on that, and that was something that Neil had been involved in for a long time, work against Monsanto because of his work with farmers and agriculture. So
we crashed a party in Des Moines, hosted by Monsanto and Bayer for all the chemical companies in the center of Iowa, which is the most saturated with, farm poisons of all the states. We crashed their party because they're killing everybody in Iowa. All the kids have cancer. It's terrible, and every family in a farm in the state of Iowa knows Neil.
Right.
But also, you just have to know that, like, if you can imagine all the pavement in the whole United States or North America, all the pavement, all the parking lots, the driveways, the roads, the interstates, all of it, there is more acreage that is coated in glyphosate than there is pavement in North America.
Wow.
And we don't see it.
Right.
Right. And it's a poison.
Right. If it was psychedelic yellow, then then we would
Yeah.
know not
So
to
we
go
became
there.
very, very concerned about this, and we worked on it. Anyway, Neil and Daryl, we eventually just our worlds collided, and that's really how we came into that situation. And you know, we did a short tour with him, and it was it 2016, I think, and then another one in 2023. I mean, sorry, 2024, and then again this year. So yeah, I think we've done almost 50 shows with Neil over the last 10 years.
What's the audience response been like?
Well, if I can jump in, um, the Daryl Hannah and Neil Young started thinking about um, when they had this political theater group that was singing. They started thinking about what opening acts are, and they started choosing to kind of curate us instead of having that, you know, that celebrity friend or that rock and roll group that some rich lawyer has in their pocket, you know, whatever tradition opening acts have to get all that exposure. We performed the last 2 years for 500,000 people, a half an hour each. So it's a valuable thing. It's an industry. It's a highly monetized industry moment opening for somebody like Neil Young. Well, they took us and gradually, you know, conversing with us and talking about what we're doing, we became hosts to the evening, which is called the Love Earth Tour. And we made sermons and songs on that theme, and or took from our, it's more accurate to say took from our repertoire things that matched up with it.
So you recontextualized the stuff that Neil was doing.
Yeah, I think so. And it's also values. It's like we have a values-based relationship. And Neil is a serious guy. I mean, he's serious about what he thinks. He's great. I mean, he's all that. He really is. He's a wonderful artist and a serious activist, and he means what he says. And but I think rock and roll, you know, is like those songs are written a certain way, and it's sometimes can be hard to carry meaning in that context. You know, it really can when people are in a sort of it's like a desire driven environment. Okay, let's just say it. Rock and roll is generally that, with lots of sensation, you know, and that's what
Right.
people want from it. So I think he's solving the problem of his setting. He has an eco village around the concert, and then he has us. And you know, it's hard actually. I'm
Yeah.
not going to lie. It's a hard situation to perform in. A huge group of people who came to see someone else. So it's really for us. It's more like an intervention. It's more like an activist event than it is like a show, because you know, we really have to work hard to keep them with us and win them over essentially, and open up space for Neil to say whatever he wants, kind of, and to carry that meaning. And so many of his songs really are about the earth, you know. And so if your mind is shifted a little and you hear all of that very differently, and I think his work lands in a different way, you know, when we state that case at the very top.
There are a lot of people, you know this, Warren. There are a lot of people um, who are who have, like Neil, they've got a lot of green songs. You know, they default to the earth. He has whole concept albums about the earth. You know,
Right.
Greendale it's a song cycle about the earth, and
Right.
the Rain is one of the songs that he sang most often on the recent Love Earth tour. That's right out of that. That's right out of that album. But when I think of Bjork, Sun Ra certainly, Alice Coltrane, Brian Eno, Arrested Development brought it to the hip hop world. Erykah Badu. We've got a lot of Earth music going on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know that it's cohered into one kind of that people look and say, oh, showbiz environmentalism. It's not. It's a bunch of individuals, right?
Right.
But we're getting to the point now, because of the level of the global heat wave, the level of the emergency, the Anthropocene emergency that we're facing right now, the mortality, the incredible changes in just the basic ocean currents, and you know, what's going on has not quite reached Americans because we have such a consumer filter around us. But I predict that they're starting to come up with phrases. I see critics at green pop. I've seen that in articles. Green, one of the articles about Neil. Green pop. I think that a lot of these people are going to know each other, are going to contact each other somehow and help each other. Billie Eilish is stopping her concerts in the middle of her concerts now and sitting on the lip of the stage for 20 minutes and talking about climate change.
Right.
So Peter Gabriel always was. Sting had a whole thing about the Amazon rainforest like 25 years ago.
Right.
So it's happening. It's happening.
Well, that's part of what we try and do with the Cool Tunes podcast is we've done profiles on people who are composing music or doing performance art around environmental themes. And so then I get a front row seat at all of this. And
So great.
one of the things that is so fascinating and remarkable to me about what you are doing is that you span the gamut from going out on the street where the choice, where someone's participation as a spectator or as a shout along on the chorus or just someone watching, that's entirely up to them. They could just be walking on or going into the local Starbucks or whatever. It's their choice to watch you. And then on the flip side of that is they're part of a crowd of 50,000 people that didn't expect to see you and you're there. And you're running the entire gamut. And I would imagine that all the experience that you have in street performance is a unique set of tools for coping with the needs of, say, a stadium performance.
Yeah, I really think performing on Neil's stages is a lot like performing in Times Square. It really is. It's so similar, and yeah, it's interesting to see them aligned. You know, I think that I was listening to what Billy was saying about all this music and artists, and you know, I just have to say again, like we need to all be working for the earth. Like it can't just be the artists or the activists or it's everybody. It's like if you're a blacksmith, you have to figure it out over there. If you're a librarian, you figure it out over there. If you're a nurse, I mean, whatever anyone's job is right now, like up there in the top 5 priorities has to be how is this helping the earth? How can I work with and help the earth? Not save the earth. The earth will save us. I mean, I'm saying,
how can we get out of the way?
Get out of the way, or also like be together in this. I mean, it's just, it's astonishing to me at night when I stand in my last few moments before I go to sleep and look up at the sky and have my, you know, reflective thoughts. I cannot tell you how many of those thoughts are about this question. It's like, how does this become a priority for more people? How does this become a way of life? And you know, it's just on all of us to do that work until we can't do it anymore.
That was when a few years, my daughter was born in 2005. She's now in college. And so I was the stay-at-home dad for the first 4 years. And then by 2009, at that point, she started to go to preschool and we homeschooled her, but so I was able to sustain that. But I basically said, everything that I've done up until this point has to be reconfigured so that it places environmental work first.
Yeah.
And that any music that I do has to have that question front and center, even if it's a 500-year-old song tradition with no context for making a political or an environmental statement. There has to be a way to put that in. And when I was touring in India back in the days when I still flew, I would speak to the audience and say that in Hindustani music, we rely on oral tradition, and I can tell you my pedagogical ancestry going back 20 generations. And climate change threatens that because you know in Hindi the word for tomorrow is the same as the word for yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And so if I teach someone a song that's 400 years old, the implication is that 400 years from now, that song will still be here because I taught it.
Oh,
And
so beautiful.
when I spoke to audiences in India, I said, we have to work to raise our awareness of climate change so that our students can still sing the songs of our teachers.
Woo-hoo.
And you know, all these old
Yeah.
Indian people start going, "Oh, so beautifully put," you know. And to me, that's really the central question: is how do we harness all of that creativity
I know.
that we have in this sense of uh, time unfolding over vast spans, and of what
Yeah.
our role is in this incredible saga. Before we close, and with that, I mean, with the caveat that obviously we all have 10 hours of conversation to go on going forward, and I can't wait I hope to meet you both sometime in person.
Yes.
And I'd love to find a way to do something musically with you because you
Me
people are just like
too.
really rocking it. Is there anything that you wish people knew that they either about you and your work or just in general?
Well, we have Plug-a-Luya. We have our Christmas shows coming up, or Kwanzaa, Hanukkah shows coming up on the 7th, 14th, and 21st of December at the Quaker Meeting House in downtown New York. And you can come to our website, and all the information will be there. So we have that. It's the shopping season, and we have, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we always have a lot of performing and actions to repel the notion that we should buy something.
I could
So
like to
that's one
say
thing.
that I think that I just want to remind everyone that it's much easier to confront these issues with other people. And one of the wonderful things about music is how it puts you together with others. And it almost doesn't matter what you're singing, you know, the work of song, the work of singing, of making sound together, this ancient technology, as you said, like this ancient media that we have that probably predates our talking, um, is a really good way to do it. So if you're out there and you're looking for something to do, maybe just go join a choir.
Mm.
Just start singing with other people, and you just find out a lot about democracy. You find out a lot about transformation. You find out a lot about, you know, the future and the past that way.
You know, we're going to close off in a minute, but in 1984, I was producing concerts in the Boston area, and I was producing a concert by an Indian classical musician, Amjad Ali Khan, and he came to do a series of radio interviews, and he was talking with Robert J. Lertzema, the NPR host based out of WGBH here in Boston at the time, and so he was performing, and he said, "Now I'm going to perform an American patriotic song." And we all went, "What?" And he played "We Shall Overcome."
Mm,
And I realized that in India, of course, the songs of the freedom movement in India are patriotic songs. So
mm,
"We Shall Overcome" in the United States, "We Shall Overcome" is construed as a song of resistance.
mm,
And
mm-hmm.
in the Indians understand it as a patriotic song.
Oh,
And I thought, that's actually like the most beautiful thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the idea somehow that what we are doing, what you are doing, is patriotic, it's affirmative, and it offers I would say a window into a different kind of faith, a different kind of approach to faith that seems to be rooted in the deep goodness that we all have inside us, and what can happen if we all can sing together and pay attention to the world around us together.
Mm,
there's a lesson there. Um, I, the lesson, I think, is really admire, honor, and service your your personal your personal work in whatever form it comes. Pete Seeger was in a performance setting with some friends, and he had a song kind of half written, and da 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 da, and he just kept singing it again and again, and it wasn't completed. And he had some people that had guests with them kind of come in. It was like an open rehearsal, and there was this African American gentleman who was sitting there, and listening to Pete. I think he may have had the "We Shall Overcome" words developed at that time, but I'm not sure. The way the story came to me, the song was partially written, and this person came up to Pete at the end and said, "That's a very catchy tune. That's a tune a lot of people could sing together." And you can see the punchline.
Yeah, well, it's one of the
It was
things
Dr.
that we,
King. It's Dr. King.
yeah, it's one of the things that we've lost, I think, a little bit in this. I was talking with Bill McKibben about this, about the need to have more singing in our climate movement. People are pretty good at chants now, but there needs to be more singing, and it's wonderful to see see and hear all of the extraordinary music that you have all created in the Church of Stop Shopping.
Well, I would happily come and do a workshop anytime to teach people how to turn those chants into a song, like just in a second. Just put a key on it, put it in the key of loud, and just elevate it to a song. It just takes so little, and it changes everything.
That's an awesome
Reverend Johnny
idea.
Gibbon is taking us up to Boston all the time. Every time I talk to him on the phone, he's taking us up to the Church of Good Trouble. He says, "Come on up."
Well, maybe we can connect you with the Boston chapter of XR and have you do a workshop, because those people they've got great ideas, but their chanting skills and their singing skills really need some juice. It's really hard. Anyway, enough of this. Savitri D, Reverend Billy, thank you so much for being with us. I've learned an enormous amount from our conversation, and I can't wait to share it with all of our listeners.
Thank you, Warren.
And I'm going to
Thank you, Warren, for
stop
your
the
thoughtful
recording.